This morning unveiling details of what Senate Democrats are planning to do, which is to raise the death tax by taking away stepped up basis, which is tax talk for the value of an estate is at the time of the decedent. When somebody dies, you value their estate for what it will sell for. They want to go back to what they bought it for. They're going to crush the middle class and the upper middle class in one generation. They're going to wipe them out. Does anybody know?
Does anybody know what?
That the Democrats are coming for them. Because between unleashing inflation and upping the death tax and taxing assets at stepped up base, they're not going to hit 20 million Americans. They're going to hit 150 million Americans. They just don't know it.
Yeah, I was, as you were introducing this, I was thinking of a line in a Washington Post story from yesterday, which described a debate. Here it is right here. Inside the Biden White House, the economic team, about what these spending proposals would do, the combination of spending and taxes. And this is the quote: some of Biden's economic advisors worried that the president's spending proposals, quote, could jeopardize the nation's long-term financial stability. And they were fearing, quote, triggering a spike in interest rates, which could in turn cause federal debt payments to skyrocket. And I think what's happened here is, they are, you followed these reports of Biden meeting with the historians. He met, with 7 historians in early March.
Yep.
In the East Room of the White House.
John Meacham
and
led.
The big topic is he wants to be FDR. And they literally seriously sit around and talk about Franklin Delano Roosevelt as being the closest historical analog for what Biden wants to do right now. Quote, this is a report from Axios, quote, Beschloss, that is Michael Beschloss, the historian, Beschloss said the parallels include the New Deal economic relief that Franklin Roosevelt brought in 1933, which saved the country from depression and chaos. Now, they have a much different idea of where the country is right now, and they have this idea, and they're all telling themselves that it needs some sort of absolutely massive economic intervention after the massive economic interventions that we've already had for, quote, COVID relief. Much of the last one, the $1.9 trillion, was not, in fact, COVID relief. And they want to do more. And they have this huge proposal. It's just in the sense that COVID relief was not really COVID relief. The infrastructure thing is not really just infrastructure. It's a vast program covering all sorts of stuff. Carbon emissions, reducing carbon emissions, more environmental measures, narrowing economic inequality, universal pre-K, free community college, extending the child tax credit. They're just going to throw all of this in, and they believe that the United States is in some sort of 1933 situation, which it is not. And they've convinced themselves that this kind of economic intervention is needed. And Biden, who I believe has kind of a hazy and nostalgic view of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was president when Biden was born in 1942, sees himself as a man in a hurry because having been born in 1942, he's approaching 80 years old and will very, very much unlikely that he would serve a second term, wants to get some sort of enormous thing done. And this is a long way of getting around to your question. Now some of them are thinking, well, how in the world can we pay for this? We cannot get this, even through some Democrats in Congress, entirely on borrowing, like we could with COVID relief. Congress was willing to say, COVID is a legitimate emergency. We'll just borrow the money and do it. We just got to do it. They can't really rely, even on all the Democrats in Congress, to go that route for all of this optional spending that they're coming up with right now. And that's why they're looking under the cushions of the sofas to try to find more money to pay for this, thus the death tax.
COVID is the economic equivalent of war. So they borrowed $2 trillion and just nobody gets hurt by that,
Yep.
right? Because unless
Right.
it's going to it's going to release inflation, but slowly, and that will build. If they do it again, the danger to the 10-year treasury is that it will skyrocket, and indeed the deficit will become far more expensive in all of spending. So they've got to find a way to cushion. That was the Washington Post story. I thought they would go with use taxes like Pete Buttigieg's mileage tax. I thought they would go with the sales tax. I thought they would go with higher income taxes because people know what they're paying. But if they do a estate tax, a death tax, and they lower the amount you get to shelter from it, which they're proposing to do dramatically, and you unleash inflation, you destroy a generation of wealth. All of that money that the boomers saved or that they put into their house, it all gets taxed. Whereas under the current tax code, it gets passed on to their children. So 30 or 40 years of work that you may have saved, they will punish that. And indeed, they will incentivize people to spend all money and not save anything, Byron. You know, incentives matter. If they say, don't save, we'll tax it if you save, then people will spend, which of course feeds into inflation. It's like they never took Act 10.
Maybe the title should be the Boomer Death Tax. I mean,
You're right.
Well, you're right. There's this essentially generational store of wealth there, if you look at the boomers from 1946 to 64, I don't know what percentage of them have died so far, but most of them are still alive and in their retiring years, many of them, and sitting on their life's savings. And you're absolutely right. This is one of these situations. Well, of course we're doing this. That's where the money is. And Democrats have long wanted, by the way, to essentially confiscate people's life savings and put them in sort of government vehicles and not in private savings that are the way most of them are right now. So my response to you is, of course they'll do this. That's where the money is. It's not like millennials have huge amounts of money saved up that can be tapped or taxed. As a matter of fact, most of the complaints from millennials is that they've gotten kind of a raw economic deal and have not had the ability to save even commensurate with their young years at this moment. So,
well, number one, what it means is you should have died last year, America. If you're a boomer, you should have kicked the bucket last year and your kids would have gotten the money. But they are going after boomer saving. And Byron, you're too young. I'm a boomer. We were raised on buy a house, keep a house, grow your wealth, give it to your kids. That was the message. Buy a house, keep a house. When you die, sell the house, and it goes to your kids. There are millions of people in that generation. Save your money, save your money, save your money. Democrats are going to punish you for doing that. Live modestly, save your money, save your money. They're going to punish everyone. It's nuts.
Isn't the current estate tax limit, is it $5 million?
$11 million. $11 million. Now, the upper middle class is protected. The really rich people get smacked, but the upper middle class is protected. This will go from 11 million to 1 million.
11 million to 1 million. Yeah,
but they're hiding it by saying we're going to get rid of. They're not going to declare that. They're going to say, but we're going to take away stepped-up bases, which is how you calculate small businesses, farmland, houses, and assets, stocks. If you've been a saver, you're going to get crushed by this. There are lots of stories out there. Just Google greatest generational wealth transfer in history. The boomers are going to leave all their money to their kids. Not anymore. Not with this Democrat. But I just think what's amazing. Do they think we're not going to notice?
Well, they got just incredibly little resistance when they threw the kitchen sink in the COVID relief bill. I do think, and I believe you and I have talked about this, one of the amazing things was that Republicans didn't really do a very good job of informing the public what was in the COVID relief bill, parts that didn't have anything to do about COVID relief, and how Democrats were actually expanding the welfare state for a year on the bet that they could make it permanent the next year, and so that they would have used the COVID emergency to reach traditional Democratic goals. This is on steroids. Now,
On steroid. This is the OK Boomer death tax. I really thank you, Byron. You've helped me name it. OK Boomer is their contemptuous derision of the older people. Well, that's going to backfire.